Yes. So we were supposed to give a lot of house rules about, raising your hands and muting your microphones, but there's just the three of us, so we can't really cause too much chaos at the moment. So Shelley's recording this session as well, just so you know. Yeah, so like I was saying, COVID came, and we know that even though COVID overwhelmed health systems, it does not mean that there is the need for other health services have reduced, especially, family planning, which for a lot of people was already a bit precarious in terms of access. And now COVID is here, and it's really even endangers their access even more. So I just wanted to ask you that so far, like in the line of your work and just generally, have you seen any great examples of youth-led innovations during the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of family planning? But it's okay also if you want to throw it open to other innovations for youth advocacy. And if you have seen anything like that, can you just let us know some of these examples?
Okay, maybe I should start in Tanzania, as I don't know if everybody of you heard. In the first, when the COVID came in Tanzania, there was this precaution, and there was work that was done by the government. But for sometimes our country declare itself free from COVID. So from there was no restriction of how to deal with the society. But in the middle of that Young and Alive initiative, we were having activities within some of our projects, and those activities were in form of concerts where we were going to the places, using music as a to convey the information to young people in the society. And the aim was to okay, sorry. Through that, during the COVID, we couldn't do the concerts. So our innovation was changing the concerts and doing the media campaign. We used the radio and television, and we used this car that we call it PA. There is a car that go through this around the street with talkings of information that we were supposed to give to the society. So it was hard that we couldn't do more concerts, but at least we use the media as our innovation to make sure that we are reaching young people and the society in whole with our information.
Mm. I think that's great that you guys were able to really quickly adapt to what happened. I just want to quickly follow up on that. Would you say that it was significantly much more difficult to do the adaptation of having a car go through the streets and give your message, or using radio and TV, as opposed to the concert? So I guess what I'm asking in general is, what are the pros and cons of how you adapted versus how you usually do things? What was better? What was worse, for lack of a better word? Hi, Cecilia.
Hello, Amanda. Yes,
Hi.
yes. Sorry.
No worries. Did you hear my question?
Yeah, I heard the question about the pros and cons of how we stretch ourselves during the COVID
Yeah.
19,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. So the advantage was, us as young people, we get the information earlier, and we were able to organize ourselves and make I would say, make a prompt or early precaution, starting providing education to the society on how to prevent themselves. And we were taking precaution, making sure that we understand our society have different capability of people, that others can get information from the radio and TV, others they cannot get at all. So within the Young and Alive initiative, we have a number of volunteers that are found in the community. So they protect themselves when they went to the society to make sure that they give out the information. So for us as young people, we were active on that, collaborating with different organizations within the Tanzania. But the disadvantage is when the government declared the COVID-free place, and we were like, we just have to stop, and we couldn't do anything after that. Like, you are not going to give the information to the society because even the government itself said no, there is no COVID, people are safe, and we have to go on with our lives. So we stopped and forget like something that like that happened until currently, like few weeks ago, where uh, people are starting doing the precaution again since the second attack of the COVID-19. But it has been, I would say, there was misinformation from the government and us as advocates of the society, and yeah, like that.
Yeah. So your methods like using the radio TV, was it easier for you than hosting concerts? Like I'm guessing it was probably cheaper than hosting a concert, but was it easier for you? And in terms of impact in your advocacy, do you think that you had similar impacts with those methods that you had to adapt because of the social distancing and COVID? Was it is it more impactful than your previous methods of advocacy, or would you say it's the same?
It, I could say there was more of conversation. We use the local radios, and as we all know, the local radios are the radios that most of the community member listen to it. So we get a number of conversation through, during our sessions in the radio. We make sure we have a frequent, but we use different type of radios. So it was expensive kind since we have to make sure that we have different radios because different radio have different listeners. To make sure that you are reaching all the community as you want, you have to reach like many radios, as many as you can. So it was a little kind of expensive since different radios have their rates of operations. But also on the numbers, I could say we reach even extra because when you go for the concerts, you reach only the people around the community that you're supposed to see eye to eye. But when you use the radio, you reach even the people that you never even imagined that you could reach them, like the people that you're aiming and the people that you are not aiming to reach them. So they have like you are we worked twice than how we thought we could give out the information that we wanted people to have it.
Yeah. Just one last question before we switch gears a bit. Do you think that some of the methods, some of these newer methods, of the innovations that you use for your advocacy now, are they here to stay, or post-pandemic in 2 years or so, are you going to go back to old methods, or maybe a hybrid of both of them?
I think this new kind of innovation will stay because it's impactful to what we have been doing. If you are doing concert and you are reaching 1,000 people, and now you are doing media communication and you are reaching three, maybe 3,000 people, you're like, this number is more, and this is the best method that I can use. So I think the innovation is the best way, and we are hoping we will continue using it. And most of the people around Tanzania, they were like, during the COVID, media was the most impactful method that we could use to make sure that we will reach different kind of people. Although we understand that there is a restriction when it comes to people living with disability, people with disability that they couldn't get all the information due to restriction. As we know, some they cannot hear the information. Sometimes even if they watch the television, there is no interpreter on the television. So there is this inclusion of information through media still leave other people around beside. And we understand that in the society we have very poor people that they cannot own the radio. Still, we will, it's like we are leaving them behind. So we can continue using that innovation, but there is more need of best way of making sure that we engage everyone and not leaving anyone behind when it comes to giving out the information.
Yeah, it's about continually tweaking and updating what you're doing, isn't it? And just trying to make sure that you're optimizing as you go along. I mean, and including people. Let me just ask a little bit around your organization, your specific experience. Since it's just us, It would be great to hear, do you guys do a lot of advocacy around family planning, or what else do you guys usually advocate on?
Young and Alive Initiative, as I said before, we are the SRHR youth-led organization. So our work of advocacy differ from the, I would say, from the local organizations to the government, from local authority to the national level. In the local in the local level, what we usually do is doing advocacy on making sure that young people are fully engaged in the decisions of sexual reproductive health, especially family planning. So currently we have doing it in 3 regions where we train some champions. We call them champions. They understand a lot about SRHR, family planning, gender-based violence, and we're making sure that gender is very inclusive, and they have this broad explanation and broad understanding. And we make sure that we have a diverse number of young people according to how we could making sure that we find them from different places where they come from. After training them, we identify, uh, we call it committee in the level of districts where they are directly being engaged. So we go and advocate to the district level to make sure that these young people are being engaged in different committee of the health. If it's the HIV, there should be young people there, a teenager, an adolescent, and another young person. And mostly we include gender. If there is a boy, there should be a girl. So that there is inclusion, but also we make sure that there is inclusion of different angle, like people with disability. So all the committees of healthy, especially family planning, which is inclusive, we make sure that these young people are being placed there with their knowledge, and they are being given the chance to provide decisions in that level. So we started from the, we call it a ward. There is ward level, there is district level. We haven't do it in the national level yet because we understand the problem starts from the down there. So we have been doing it in 3 regions currently. And I would say that for our follow-up, they are doing great in the places that we make sure that they're there. And most of the time when we go doing the advocacy, making sure that young people are well engaged in the committees of the health, actually after some times there is a lot of change, because most of the decisions in the local level are being made without inclusion of young people, since in the local level is where you'll find a health center, is where you'll find a dispensary, where all these provide service to young people, including family planning. So wherever they are going to, any decision that they are going to make relating the dispensary or the health center, there is young people is there, and that they make decision and say, no, we think that young people need this more than this. We need this method of family planning more than this. So at least now we are sure that there is young people who can make decisions for other young people, and they can find information around their age and bring it to the local level to be solved.
I think you've already started a very important part of our conversation, which is around the effective strategies for meaningful youth engagement in advocacy and accountability for SRHR and family planning. So aside from this method that you guys have deployed that sounds like it's been very effective, where you've seen you're plugging young people into these spaces at the local level and at the primary health facility level, what other strategies can make sure that we have meaningful youth engagement and adolescent engagement in family planning and SRHR advocacy?
Another thing that we have been doing is making sure that the documents, or I call it the guidelines that have been produced, that is specifically for adolescents or youth, we make sure that youth-led organization is engaged so that they don't leave anything behind that is concerning adolescents and youth. And Young and Alive, we have been through different guidelines that have been made in the national level, and we are making sure that we are being engaged, us and other youth-led organizations.
All right, cool. So we're talking about even engaging young people, even at the level of policy and creating guidelines, etc.
Yeah.
Just to ask, in the course of your organization of Young and Alive's engagement at the local level, have you observed, or even in other instances, have you observed what kind of impacts have you observed on family planning services that COVID-19 has brought on? Have you seen specifically some of the things or the ripple effects of COVID-19 on family planning services and policy?
During our last meeting, which we conducted on it was on September, no, on October. Half of the champions that we trained was young mothers, and these young mothers are the, we could say, is the impact of the COVID, that during the COVID, most of them get pregnant and they were unable to receive family planning. So since now they are young mothers, they are going to be the champions, because we understand that they are from, we would say, is not interior parts, but they were in the places that we understand during the COVID-19, there was shortage of family planning methods. And despite that, young people weren't included in all this decision making. So all of this lead to more increase in teenage pregnancies. And most of them, they were like school, they dropped from school. And from Tanzania, as all of you know, is that when you get pregnant, you don't go back to school. So most of them, they were young mothers, and that was really bad stories around.
Do you think that the exclusion of young people from the decision making when it comes to family planning, especially during the pandemic and seeing that people did not have access, do you think that the authorities, the governments, and the health services, they missed an opportunity to innovate how access to family planning during the pandemic?
Yes, I think that because young people can decide how to reach other young people around, they have the innovation. The matter is, how do we believe in them? How do we believe that this method is good for them? Every innovation comes from young people, has impacted them. They know themselves better. And we are not here just to choose for them, because they know how they can reach other young people. They know which method of family planning is mostly used. They know everything that they are going through in the society. So most of the time, the local authorities, they have to listen to what young people want and what they think that is the best way for them to be reached, rather than their own innovation without inclusion.
Hmm. Yeah, so we can definitely say that there's a cost to excluding young people, which means that in some instances, authorities may not be able to innovate as quickly or even at all as they should in times of like a pandemic, when we need to be agile in responding to some of these challenges. While we're on the subject of young people innovating specifically, I think you spoke to us a bit about how your organization was able to adapt really quickly. And instead of trying to put together a concert with people who were in bubbles, you were able to say, what else can we use this money for? Let's pay radio stations, let's get a car and drive through the markets and speak to people. What other instances have you seen? How are young people leveraging technology, social media, apps, etc., to advance family planning advocacy? But even you can even give us examples of other SRHR advocacy that you're seeing young people use all these new technology methods to advance.
Currently, another thing I think young people, I would say, starting with what we have been doing, during the COVID-19 pandemic started, Young and Alive initiative, we started you doing Instagram live. And we start, firstly, I remember our first Instagram live was talking about consent. And why did we start with consent? It was the time that everyone was at home, and most of the young people were living at home, and some go to visit maybe their boyfriend, their girlfriends, and they could have like doing sex without consent, and after that all ended to pregnancy and other problems. And after the consent session we go on with family planning. We discuss one family planning after another. We talked about prevention, we talk about mental health. We had like I remember we do like 16 session, uh, making sure that we engage young people through Instagram Live. And from our statistics, I remember we could reach even 1,000 young people per day because we did it just once in a week. So during our Instagram Live, we understand how internet is another innovation method to reach out for young people when it comes to family planning. And currently, Young and Alive initiative, we engage young people through our media, our social media, which is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we have more conversation in everyday life, especially when it comes to which method for young people to use, where to find the service, and we even like encourage them. And sometimes we have this one-on-one conversation when someone come across our DM to ask for more questions. We are there to help. But also when it comes to the society, how other young people have communication. And most of the young people, they're like being curious to ask many questions, and most of them go for Google. So there is more need of having a very specific place where they could find the information. But I think not only information in English, since Tanzania, we use mostly Swahili rather than English, but find it in Swahili or even in other translation that they could get from their own language, because we have almost 100 language. And I cannot confirm that not every young people use Swahili or English, but some other use their mother tongue language. So there is need of the hub where young people could get all the information, not only translated in Swahili, but translated in the native language too. And I could say for our website, it's just in both Swahili and English, but still we don't have so much in the hub for the young people, but we are working on it to make sure that we engage them effectively for that.
I think it's really fascinating, isn't it, how the pandemic really allowed, especially in the space of youth advocacy, we're really able to like expand our digital footprint. Instagram Live was such, I mean, it really took off during the hub. TikTok videos, I've seen so many creative ways advocacy is going
Yeah.
on with TikTok, and people are doing what in my very brief stint in night school in comms, where we used to call guerrilla marketing. They just hide in some advocacy in the middle of some really fun skits, and you're laughing, but you're also thinking. It makes you think. So it's really, really interesting to see what young people are doing. And there's something else you said that really made me start thinking around even intellectual innovation. So you guys are already thinking about the next step and the next step. So you're thinking of, let's talk about consent, because where there's consent, there's likely to be an increase in family planning and safe sex. Let's talk about mental health, because all these other things, all the social determinants of family planning, so to speak. So that's really fascinating way to look at it, that one of the innovations could even be intellectual. We could think about what are the other things that cause risky sexual behavior, or that reduces people's access to family planning. How can we speak about and combat some of those things? Shelley, I don't want to throw you under the bus, but I don't know if you, I mean, it's a really, really great conversation with Cecilia. I don't know if you want to chime in at this moment, if there's something that you would like to speak to so far.
I'm over here just sort of quietly thinking to myself, like, yes, yes, yes. Like, I love all of this. And I totally agree with what you both are saying in that, you know, as horrible as the COVID pandemic has been and how it's affected people's lives, it's also an opportunity for disruption, you know, and in that disruption, there has been some positive change. And young people in particular have innovated and created some really unique ways of approaching policymakers, creating change in their communities that, you know, will leave the bad once COVID is behind us. Let's leave that, the horribleness of COVID, but let's keep all of those innovations and move them forward. So I think, Cecilia, it's been great to have you on this conversation. I wish that we had had a larger group so we all could have shared more, but even with a small group, it's just nice to talk through what's happening in different countries and to learn from one another. And now I know about the Young and Alive initiative, which is another bonus. So
I mean, definitely,
Thank
I will be
you.
looking for you moving forward at the AU. I'm going to be looking out for you. I just want to ask you one last
Thank
question.
you.
I'm seeing that we've actually run out of the time that has been allotted to us, but I just want to ask you one last question. I think moving forward, what would you like to see happen in your country, specifically for family planning advocacy and for young people? How would you like to see young people use their innovations to even increase access to family planning, but also advocate to the governments and the authorities on family planning?
To me, I believe in meaningful participation of young people themselves from in decision making, in the making of the guideline, policies, rules, laws that are relating to them. Why? Because most of the time, wherever anything that society or government is making decision over young people, they usually either over or under perceive relating to what they think that young people want. So what I would like to see is meaningful participation of young people in everything relating to them, in everything relating to SRHR in the society. Like they do their own innovation, they do their own advocacy, they say what they want, they say how they want it to be done. And that to me, it will be the successful.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. I couldn't even add a punctuation to that. That is fantastic. Thank you very, very much for speaking to us and for being a trooper, waiting with us. And really,
Thank you.
we were just three in this room, but I felt like the conversation can go on and on. Thank you so much for coming in. I just wanted to ask Shelly, are we going back to the main room? Like what happens now?
no, I think now we just close and we don't go back to the main room. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So it's been really great chatting with you today. Thank you so much. And yeah, definitely I'll look out for you. And you can find me on social media. It would be great to connect with you. I don't know, I can't type it in this chat box, but I am Amanda X DEV on social media. And if you find me, it would be great to connect on Twitter. That's the only
Oh,
social media I use. The only
yeah.
social media I use. Yeah.
I will look for you until I find you. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye. Bye,
Bye
Cecilia.
both. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Insights, just feel